Captain Tae-ho Kim stared out the viewport of his ship as they approached the massive space station. Nexus Prime hung in space like a giant metal city, its towers stretching for kilometers in every direction. Ships from hundreds of different worlds moved around it like insects around a bright light. Some ships looked like flowing water made of metal. Others appeared to be grown rather than built, with smooth organic curves. A few seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing bright against the darkness of space. Then there was his ship. The UES Determination looked like a metal box with engines stuck on the back. Thick armor plates covered its hull, held together with visible welds that ran like scars across its surface. The paint was already chipping after just 6 months in space. Next to the elegant alien vessels, it looked like a garbage truck parked next to racing cars. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we're getting some interesting radio chatter from the other ships." "Let me hear it," Tae-ho said. The speaker crackled to life with alien voices speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Look at that thing. How does it even fly?" One voice laughed. "I've seen asteroids with better design," said another. "Are those actually rivets holding it together? What primitive species builds with rivets anymore?" Tae-ho felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "Turn it off. We have work to do." Ambassador So-Young Park stood beside him, her diplomatic uniform crisp and professional. She had spent years preparing for this moment, learning dozens of alien languages and customs. Now she watched the greatest gathering of intelligent species in the galaxy, and they were all laughing at her people. "They don't understand us yet," she said quietly. "But they will." The Determination slowly docked at one of the station's many ports. As they walked through the corridors toward the council chambers, Tae-ho noticed how other beings moved away from them. Some pointed and whispered. Others simply stared with whatever organs they used for seeing. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a vast circle that rose toward the ceiling like a metal mountain. Representatives from 847 different worlds filled the seats. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or living rocks. A few appeared to be made of gas held together by energy fields. At the center of the chamber stood Speaker Veltros, a tall reptilian being whose scales shimmered green and gold under the lights. His voice boomed through the chamber as he addressed the assembly. "Today we welcome the newest members of our great federation," Veltros said, his forked tongue flicking between his words. "The humans of the Sol system have finally achieved faster-than-light travel. After only 50,000 years of civilization, they have joined us among the stars." Laughter rippled through the chamber. 50,000 years was nothing to most of these species. Some had been traveling between stars for millions of years. Ambassador Park stepped forward to address the council. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times, but her heart still pounded as she began to speak. "Honored representatives," she said, "humanity is grateful for this opportunity. We may be new to space travel, but we bring determination, creativity, and a strong desire for peace among all peoples." More laughter echoed through the chamber. A being that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke up. "Determination? Is that what you call those flying scrap heaps you arrived in?" Trade Minister Kickstall, an insect-like creature with 6 arms and compound eyes, clicked his mandibles together. "The humans have been assigned appropriate trade routes and mining rights," he announced. "Since they are still learning, we have given them access to the outer rim systems. Dead worlds, empty space, nothing of value. Perfect for beginners." So-Young felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. "We appreciate any opportunity to prove ourselves worthy of your trust." "Prove yourselves?" Veltros laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "With what? Those rust buckets you call starships? We have children's toys with more advanced technology." Captain Tae-ho watched from the viewing gallery above. His hands gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. Below him, the most powerful beings in the galaxy treated his people like backward children who had somehow stumbled into their sophisticated world. After the ceremony, So-Young joined Tae-ho in the station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see the human fleet. 12 ships in total, all built in Earth's orbital shipyards. They were functional and strong, but compared to the alien vessels around them, they looked like ancient relics. "Admiral Lee's message came through while you were in there," Tae-ho said, handing her a data pad. "The hegemony is making moves near our colonies in the Kepler sector." So-Young read the report with growing concern. The hegemony was a militaristic species that looked like giant birds of prey. They had been expanding their territory for decades, crushing smaller civilizations that got in their way. Now they were eyeing the systems that humans had just begun to settle. "What do they want?" she asked. "3 of our mining colonies," Tejo replied. "They claimed the systems belonged to them by right of conquest, even though nobody was living there when we arrived." Did Admiral Lee respond? Tejo nodded grimly. He told them the colonies are under Earth's protection. The hegemony commander just laughed. He said they would remove the human infestation within the week. So Young looked out at their small fleet again. Earth had sent everything they could spare. 12 ships to protect dozens of colonies spread across light years of space. Most of the vessels weren't even built for combat. They were converted cargo haulers and mining ships with weapons bolted onto their hulls. "How many ships does the hegemony have in that sector?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Intelligence says at least 30, all purpose-built warships with plasma cannons and energy shields." They stood in silence for a moment, watching alien ships glide past their crude human vessels. In the distance, a hegemony warship appeared through a jump gate. It was sleek and deadly, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian. Weapon ports lined its sides like the eyes of a predator. "They think we're a joke," So Young said finally. "Maybe we are," Tejo replied. "Our ships are held together with welds and hope. Our weapons are primitive, our armor is just thick metal plates. But we're still here," So Young said, her voice growing stronger. "We made it to the stars. We built colonies. We're not going away just because they want us to." Tejo smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. "No, we're not." As they watched, the hegemony ship changed course toward the outer systems where human colonies waited, undefended and vulnerable. Soon the galaxy would learn what happened when someone threatened humanity's children. They might not respect human ships yet, but that was about to change. The war was coming, and with it, fire. Commander Hyejin Choi felt the UES Incheon shudder as another plasma bolt struck their hull. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. Through the main viewport, she could see the hegemony fleet approaching like a pack of metal wolves. "Damage report," she called out. "Forward armor is holding but barely," replied Engineer Bo-Ra-Yoon from her station. "That last hit took out power to Deck 7. I'm rerouting through the backup systems." Hyejin nodded and turned back to the tactical display. 12 hegemony warships were closing on the human colony of New Busan. Against them, humanity could field only 3 vessels: the Incheon, the converted cargo ship Pusan, and the mining vessel-turned warship Daegu. It should have been a massacre. The hegemony ships were beautiful and terrible. Each one was twice the size of the human vessels, their black hulls smooth as glass. Energy shields shimmered around them like soap bubbles, deflecting the crude human missiles that exploded harmlessly against their defenses. Plasma cannons mounted along their sides fired bolts of superheated gas that could melt through a meter of steel. "General Kexmore is hailing us," reported the communications officer. "Put him through," Hyejin said, the screen filled with the image of a hegemony commander. He looked like a giant eagle with arms instead of wings. His golden eyes held nothing but contempt as he spoke. "Human vessels, you are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. These worlds belong to the hegemony by right of conquest. Remove your pathetic colonies, or we will remove them for you." "This is Commander Choi of the Earth Defense Force," Hyejin replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her stomach. "These colonies are under Earth's protection. If you attack them, you attack us." General Kexmore's beak opened in what might have been laughter. "Look at your ships, human. Rust and rivets held together with primitive technology. Our children build better toys. Withdraw now and we will allow you to live." "Counteroffer," Hyejin said. "Turn around and go home and we won't have to embarrass you in front of your crew." The alien general's eyes flashed with rage. "So be it, destroy them all." The hegemony fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked across space like falling stars. The first volley struck the Pusan, overwhelming its improvised shields and punching holes through its converted cargo holds. The ship spun away, trailing atmosphere and debris. "Pusan is hurt bad," Bo-Ra reported. "They're losing pressure on multiple decks." "Tell Captain Nam to fall back," Hyejin ordered. "Get his people to the escape pods if he has to." The Incheon shook again as more plasma fire found its mark. Unlike the elegant hegemony vessels, the human ship didn't have energy shields. Instead, it relied on thick armor plates welded over its vital systems. The metal glowed white hot where the plasma struck, but it held. Bora, can you give me more power to the engines? Heijin asked. I can try, but the reactor is already running at maximum safe capacity, the engineer replied. Forget safe. These aliens think we're primitives who don't know what we're doing. Let's prove them right. Bora grinned and began rerouting power from life support, artificial gravity, and everything else that wasn't essential for fighting. The Incheon leaped forward, accelerating at a rate that would have been impossible for a hegemony ship with its sophisticated safety systems. Are you insane? General Kexmore's voice crackled over the radio. You'll kill your own crew with those acceleration levels. Maybe, Heijin said through gritted teeth as the G-forces pressed her deep into her command chair. But we'll take some of you with us. The Incheon dove toward the enemy formation using a nearby asteroid field for cover. The hegemony ships tried to follow, but their elegant hulls weren't built for the rough treatment the humans were willing to endure. Asteroids that would barely scratch the Incheon's thick armor could damage the delicate systems of the alien vessels. Target the lead ship, Heijin ordered. Fire everything we have. The Incheon's weapons were crude compared to hegemony plasma cannons. They used chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles, technology that the aliens considered ancient. But at close range, even ancient weapons could be deadly. Nuclear missiles struck the hegemony flagship, overwhelming its shields through sheer volume of fire. Railgun projectiles followed, punching through the weakened defenses to tear holes in the ship's hull. The elegant vessel staggered, its perfect formation broken. Impossible, General Kexmore snarled. No primitive species should be able to damage our ships. We're full of surprises, Heijin replied. But the victory was temporary. The other hegemony ships regrouped and continued their assault. The Daegu, trying to protect a group of civilian transports, took a direct hit from 3 plasma cannons at once. The mining ship's reactor went critical, and it vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Captain Seung-ho Nam, commanding the damaged Pusan, made a desperate decision. His ship was dying, its hull breached in dozens of places, but his engines still worked, and his crew was still alive. All hands prepare for ramming speed, he announced over the ship's intercom. It's been an honor serving with you. The Pusan, a former cargo hauler that had carried grain and manufactured goods between Earth and the outer colonies, accelerated toward the nearest hegemony warship. The aliens tried to destroy it before it could reach them, but the human vessel's thick armor absorbed their fire. The collision was spectacular. The Pusan struck the hegemony ship amidships, both vessels disappearing in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. When the light faded, only debris remained. Captain Nam, Heijin whispered, her voice filled with grief and pride. The battle continued for 3 more hours. The Incheon, now alone against 10 remaining hegemony ships, fought with the desperate fury of a cornered animal. Bora worked miracles in the engine room, keeping systems running that should have failed hours ago. The crew fired every weapon until the barrels glowed red hot, then fired them some more. But in the end, numbers told. The Incheon's armor finally gave way under concentrated plasma fire. Systems failed one by one. The ship listed to one side, its engines stuttering. Surrender now and we will grant you mercy, General Kexmore offered. Heijin looked around her battered bridge. Half her crew was wounded. The air was thick with smoke. Their weapons were empty and their armor was nearly gone. Any sane commander would surrender. Engineer Yoon, she said quietly. How much antimatter do we have left in the reactor? Bora understood immediately. Enough, Commander. More than enough. Then set it to overload. 5-minute timer. The engineer's hands flew over her controls. Done, all hands abandoned ship, but there were no escape pods left. They had all been destroyed in the fighting. Heijin and her crew faced their fate with the same determination that had brought them to the stars. The Incheon's final act was to ram the second hegemony flagship. The antimatter explosion that followed took out 2 more enemy vessels and severely damaged 3 others. When the battle ended, the hegemony had won. The human colony on New Busan was destroyed, its population evacuated or dead. General Kexmore stood victorious with half his fleet still operational, but victory had come at a terrible cost. The hegemony had expected to crush 3 primitive ships without losing a single vessel. Instead, they had lost 4 warships and suffered damage to 5 others. Their casualties numbered in the thousands. How? Kexmore demanded of his tactical officer. How did 3 rust buckets destroy half our fleet? They fought like madmen, General, the officer replied. They had no regard for their own safety. They used tactics that should have killed their own crews. And their weapons, while primitive, were surprisingly effective when used in such large numbers. News of the battle spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Most species dismissed it as a fluke, a lucky accident where primitive humans had managed to get in a few good hits through sheer desperation, but some observers were more thoughtful. On a dozen different worlds, military analysts studied the battle recordings with growing interest. The humans had lost, yes, but they had made the mighty hegemony bleed. They had shown that crude technology, when backed by determination and innovative tactics, could challenge even the most advanced weapons. Deep in the archives of the Galactic Council, a single note was added to humanity's file. Potentially dangerous if provoked. Recommend continued observation. The galaxy was beginning to learn that there was more to human ships than rust and rivets. Behind those crude hulls lay something the aliens had forgotten in their millions of years of civilization. The willingness to sacrifice everything for what they believed in. The humans had lost their first battle, but they had won something more important. They had earned respect, even if their enemies didn't want to admit it yet. Fleet Admiral Daewon Shin stood in the command center of the UES Seoul, watching her fleet take formation around Kepler Station. 6 months had passed since the disaster at New Busan, and everything had changed. Where once humanity fielded a dozen converted cargo ships, now 30 purpose-built warships moved through space like a pack of hungry wolves. "Admiral, all ships report ready for battle," said her tactical officer. Commander Jae-sung Oh-da-un nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The hegemony had returned with 50 ships this time, convinced that overwhelming force would crush human resistance once and for all. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. "Dr. An, are the new systems online?" she asked. Dr. Mi-kyung-an looked up from her science station, a smile playing at her lips. "All hybrid systems are functioning perfectly, Admiral. The enemy is in for quite a surprise." The human ship still looked crude to alien eyes. Their hulls were angular and brutal, covered in thick armor plates that seemed to have been welded on by hand, but appearances could be deceiving. Hidden beneath that primitive exterior was a marriage of human engineering and alien technology that no one in the galaxy had seen before. Human scientists had studied every piece of hegemony wreckage from the Battle of New Busan. They had learned how plasma cannons worked, how energy shields operated, how faster-than-light drives functioned. But instead of simply copying the alien technology, they had done something uniquely human. They had made it better. "Enemy fleet is entering weapons range," Commander O reported. "Let them come closer," Da-un said calmly. "I want them to see what we've built." The hegemony fleet approached in perfect formation, their sleek black ships moving like dancers in space. At their head flew the dreadnought Talon's Edge, commanded by General Vorthak, who had boasted that he would succeed where General Kexmore had failed. "Human vessels, you will surrender immediately," came the familiar ultimatum. "Your pathetic resistance at New Busan was noted, but this time we come prepared. You face the full might of the hegemony war machine." "This is Admiral Shin of the Earth Defense Force," Da-un replied. "We've prepared a few surprises for you as well. I suggest you reconsider your attack." General Vorthak's laughter echoed through the communication system. "Surprises? What can your rust buckets possibly do that we have not already seen?" "You're about to find out," Da-un said. She switched to her fleet frequency. "All ships execute Wolfpack Alpha. Show them what humans do when we're angry." The human fleet scattered like startled birds, abandoning any pretense of traditional formation fighting. This was the new human doctrine that had been developed in Earth's war colleges. Fluid tactics, mutual support, and absolute refusal to fight by anyone else's rules. The Soul dove toward the enemy formation with 5 escort ships, firing as she came. But these weren't the crude nuclear missiles of 6 months ago. Human weapons now used hybrid technology, plasma warheads guided by human targeting systems, powered by reactors that combined alien energy technology with human redundancy engineering. The first volley caught the hegemony completely off guard. Their shields, designed to deflect traditional plasma fire, offered no protection against weapons that shifted frequency mid-flight. 3 enemy ships staggered under the unexpected assault, their perfect formation beginning to break apart. "Impossible," General Vorthak snarled. "Those are our own weapons." "How did they—" His question was answered when 12 more human ships appeared from behind Kepler Station's asteroid belt. They had been hidden there for hours, powered down and waiting. Now they struck the hegemony fleet from behind, their hybrid weapons tearing through shields that had been focused forward. Dr. Ahn had done more than just copy alien technology. She had studied the psychological patterns of different species, learning how they thought, how they fought, how they expected others to behave. The hegemony were proud warriors who believed in honor and direct confrontation. They would never have considered hiding behind asteroids like human ships did. This is not honorable combat, Vorthak protested as his fleet found itself caught between two forces. Honor is for people who can afford it, Daun replied. We're fighting for survival. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships moved in coordinated groups of 3 or 4, each group covering the other's weaknesses. When one ship's shields failed, another would move to protect it. When enemy fire concentrated on a single target, the others would swarm the attackers. Commander O led a boarding assault on a damaged hegemony cruiser, his Marines using new tactics developed specifically for alien environments. Instead of trying to fight the tall, powerful hegemony warriors in direct combat, the humans used their smaller size and greater agility to move through the ship's ventilation systems and maintenance shafts. The hegemony had never faced an enemy that would crawl through air ducts to reach them. Their psychological profiles didn't account for species that would ignore concepts of honorable warfare in favor of simple effectiveness. They're like vermin, one hegemony captain reported. They swarm through our ships like insects. There's no honor in this. There's no honor in losing either, Commander O replied over the radio as his team took control of the cruiser's engineering section. The Soul herself was a masterpiece of human hybrid technology. Her hull was still thick steel armor, welded and riveted like all human ships, but underneath that crude exterior lay systems that combined the best of both civilizations. Energy shields powered by human reactors that could be overloaded without destroying the ship. Plasma cannons that could fire solid projectiles when energy ran low. Computer systems that used alien processing speed with human redundancy. Admiral, the enemy flagship is targeting us directly, reported the tactical officer. Good, Dayan said. That means our plan is working. All power to forward shields and return fire. The Talon's edge was 3 times the size of the Soul, mounting weapons that could destroy a city. Its plasma cannons fired in perfect synchronization, sending enough energy to vaporize a normal ship. The Soul's shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the assault, but they held. Shields at 60% and falling, called the engineering officer. Dr. Ahn, now would be a good time for that surprise you mentioned, Dawan said. The scientist's fingers danced over her controls, activating the feedback pulse in 3, 2, 1. The Soul's shield suddenly flared brighter, then collapsed completely. For a moment, it seemed like the human flagship was defenseless. General Vorthak roared in triumph and ordered his weapons to fire again, but the shield collapse had been deliberate. As the hegemony plasma struck the Soul's hull, Dr. Ahn's modified systems absorbed the energy instead of letting it dissipate. Every joule of power was channeled through the ship's hybrid weapons systems and fired back at the enemy flagship. The concentrated plasma burst struck the Talon's edge at point-blank range with its own amplified power. The great ship's shields overloaded and failed, leaving its hull exposed to the remaining human fleet. Now, Dayan ordered. All ships concentrate fire on the flagship. 30 human warships fired as one. Nuclear missiles, plasma bolts, kinetic projectiles, and weapons that combined all 3 technologies struck the hegemony dreadnought from every direction. The proud vessel, flagship of the mightiest species in this region of space, broke apart under the concentrated assault. General Vorthak's last transmission was a mixture of rage and disbelief. This is impossible. No primitive species should be able to defeat us. But the humans had done more than defeat them. They had revolutionized warfare itself. While other species had spent millions of years perfecting their traditional methods, humanity had taken the best ideas from everyone and combined them in ways no one had thought possible. The remaining hegemony ships fled in disorder, their perfect formations shattered by an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Behind them, they left 23 destroyed warships and thousands of dead crew members. As the battle ended, Admiral Daun received reports from across human space. Similar victories had been won at 5 other systems where hegemony forces had expected easy conquest. The tide of war was turning. "Admiral," Dr. Ahn said, "we're receiving communications from other species. The Zephyrians want to discuss an alliance. The Crystalline Collective is offering to share technology. Even the Galactic Council is requesting a meeting." Dayun smiled grimly. "Tell them we're too busy right now. We have a war to win." Through the viewport of the Soul, she could see the wreckage of the hegemony fleet drifting in space. 6 months ago, the galaxy had mocked human ships as rust buckets held together with hope. Now those same crude vessels had shattered the myth of hegemony invincibility. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. They had been underestimated once. It would not happen again. President Kyung-Soo Hwang stood before the massive holographic display in Earth's War Council chamber, watching red markers spread across the 3-dimensional map of local space. Each marker represented a human fleet group, and there were now over 200 of them scattered across 57 star systems. "1 year ago, they called us primitives," he said to the assembled military leaders. "Now they're forming coalitions to contain us. I'd call that progress." Captain Yujin Song, commander of the newest class of human warship, nodded grimly. "The intelligence reports are clear, Mr. President. 7 major species have joined the containment coalition. They're massing the largest fleet in galactic history." The war had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. What began as a border dispute with the hegemony had become a conflict that threatened to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Humanity's rapid expansion and unorthodox tactics had alarmed species that had remained neutral for centuries. "How many ships are they bringing?" asked Fleet Admiral Daeun Shin. "Current estimates put it at 150 vessels from 7 different species," replied General Korth's holographic image. The alien commander appeared via long-range communication from his flagship. "Each ship represents the finest military technology their civilization can produce." "And how many can we field?" President Hwang asked. 50 combat-ready vessels at Titan's Gate," Admiral Shin replied. "The shipyards are working around the clock, but we can't match their numbers or their individual ship capabilities." "Then we don't try to match them," President Hwang said. "We do what humans do best. We adapt." The room fell silent as Earth's leaders contemplated the impossible odds. 50 human ships against 150 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. By any rational calculation, humanity should surrender immediately and accept whatever terms the coalition offered. But rationality had never been humanity's strongest trait. Captain Song stepped forward. "Mr. President, I've been working with Dr. Ahn on some new modifications to the fleet. We may not have their numbers, but we have something they don't expect, which is the willingness to turn our ships into weapons themselves." 3 weeks later, the coalition fleet assembled at the edge of the Titan's Gate system. It was an impressive sight. Sleek hegemony dreadnoughts flying alongside crystalline Vexthal ships that looked like living jewels. Gaseous beings from the Nebula Consortium piloted vessels that seemed to be made of controlled lightning, while the machine intelligence known as the Collective brought ships that were perfect geometric forms covered in weapons. General Korth commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel that combined technologies from all 7 species. He was a veteran of 1,000 battles, and he had never seen a more powerful armada. "The humans have 50 ships," he said to his multi-species command staff. "We have 150. Each of our vessels is technologically superior to anything they can field. This should be over quickly." Ambassador Threx, representing the diplomatic wing of the coalition, activated his communication system. "Human fleet, you are outnumbered 3 to 1. Your ships, while formidable for their primitive construction, cannot stand against the combined might of 7 advanced civilizations. Surrender now, and we will discuss terms for your confinement to the Sol system." The response came from Captain Song aboard the UES Phoenix Rising, the newest and largest human warship. "Coalition fleet, this is Captain Song of the Earth Defense Force. We appreciate your concern for our welfare, but we're going to have to decline your generous offer." "Captain Song," General Korth interrupted, "I have studied your tactics. You rely on unconventional warfare and the element of surprise, but we are prepared for your tricks. Our fleet has been specifically configured to counter human tactics." "That's interesting," Song replied. because our fleet has been specifically configured to not care about your counters. The battle began with a massive coordinated strike from the Coalition. 150 ships fired simultaneously, their combined firepower enough to sterilize a planet. The energy wave that struck the human formation should have vaporized every ship in seconds. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The human ships didn't try to dodge or deflect the attack. They absorbed it. Every human vessel had been modified with Dr. On's latest innovation, absorption field generators. Instead of traditional shields that deflected energy, these systems captured incoming fire and stored it in massive capacitor banks built into each ship's hull. Impossible, General Korth exclaimed as his sensors showed the human fleet not only intact, but glowing with stored energy. No species has ever developed absorption technology on this scale. We're full of surprises, Captain Song said. Return fire. 50 human ships released the absorbed energy in a concentrated barrage that struck the Coalition fleet, like the wrath of an angry god. The stolen power of 150 advanced warships, focused and amplified by human engineering, tore through alien shields and armor like paper. 7 Coalition vessels were destroyed instantly. 20 more suffered critical damage. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid the continuing human assault. But the real surprise was yet to come. As the Coalition fleet regrouped, they noticed something disturbing. The human ships were getting larger. Sir, reported a Vexthul sensor officer, his crystalline voice ringing with confusion. The enemy vessels appear to be growing. It was true. Each human ship was deploying massive structures from hidden compartments in their hulls. What had looked like standard warships were revealing themselves to be something far more dangerous. Mobile shipyards. How is that possible? Demanded General Korth. His question was answered when the first wave of combat drones launched from the human fleet. Small, fast, and deadly, they swarmed toward the Coalition ships like angry insects. But these weren't ordinary drones. They were built using simplified versions of every major alien technology the humans had captured or reverse-engineered. Captain Song's voice filled the communication channels. You wanted to see human mass production capabilities? Here's a demonstration. The Phoenix Rising alone deployed 300 combat drones, each one equipped with hybrid weapon systems and programmed with the most aggressive tactics human military AI could devise. The other 49 ships released similar swarms, filling space with thousands of small craft that moved with inhuman coordination. This is madness, General Korth shouted as his flagship came under attack from dozens of drones simultaneously. No species builds factories inside their warships. Humans do, Song replied simply. The battle turned into a nightmare for the Coalition. Their sophisticated weapons were designed to fight other large warships, not swarms of small targets that moved unpredictably and attacked from every direction. Their targeting systems, optimized for elegant dueling between capital ships, couldn't cope with the chaos of drone warfare. Worse, the human ships themselves were proving nearly indestructible. Their absorption fields meant that every shot fired at them only made them stronger. Their thick armor, which the aliens had mocked as primitive, turned out to be surprisingly effective against energy weapons that were meant to burn through elegant shield systems. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count, reported the Coalition's tactical officer. The humans are employing tactics we've never seen before. General Korth watched his beautiful fleet being torn apart by crude human vessels and their swarms of mechanical parasites. This wasn't warfare as civilized species understood it. This was something primal and vicious, like being attacked by a pack of rabid animals. All ships withdraw to minimum safe distance, he ordered reluctantly. Activate orbital bombardment protocols. If we can't defeat their ships, we'll destroy their colonies. But as the Coalition fleet pulled back to begin bombarding human civilian targets, Captain Song played his final card. Hidden among the asteroid field at the edge of the system were 30 more human vessels, powered down and invisible to sensors. They had been waiting for exactly this moment. The trap closed with mechanical precision. The Coalition fleet found itself caught between two forces, unable to retreat or advance. Human ships and their drone swarms attacked from all sides, while the absorption fields turned the aliens' own weapons against them. When the battle ended 4 hours later, the galaxy's most powerful military alliance had been shattered by 50 human ships. 73 Coalition vessels had been destroyed or captured. The survivors limped home in defeat, carrying news that would send shockwaves through every civilized world. General Korth, broadcasting from his damaged flagship as it retreated, sent a message that would become famous throughout known space. The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They fight like the universe itself is their weapon. Back on Earth, President Huang watched the battle reports with satisfaction. "What's our status, Admiral?" "Complete victory, Mr. President," Admiral Shin replied. Casualties were lighter than expected. "We lost only 6 ships and our production facilities are already building replacements. And the political situation? Changing rapidly," said Foreign Minister Park. 14 species have requested immediate peace negotiations. The Galactic Council wants to discuss humanity's legitimate security concerns. Grand Admiral Donghyun Kang stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled take formation around Earth. 300 warships hung in space like a constellation of steel and determination, each one a fusion of human engineering and alien technology that no species in the galaxy could match. 2 years had passed since the victory at Titan's Gate, and the war had spread to every corner of known space. 47 species had either surrendered to human forces or requested alliance agreements. The great powers that had once mocked humanity's crude ships now spoke of the human problem in hushed, fearful voices. But one species had yet to bow. The Dominion, oldest and most powerful empire in the galaxy, had finally roused itself to action. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system," reported Captain Yoonji Lim from the bridge of the Phoenix Rising. "It's the biggest fleet we've ever seen." Through the main viewer, Donghyun watched as 500 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. The Dominion fleet was a sight to behold, vessels that looked like living architecture, their hulls formed from materials that seemed to bend light itself. Some ships appeared to be made of crystallized energy, while others looked like they had been carved from single pieces of exotic matter. At the center of the formation was the Eternal Throne, a ship so massive it could have been mistaken for a small moon. Emperor Vexthul himself commanded the fleet, determined to end the human threat once and for all. "Human vessels," came the Emperor's voice, transmitted across all frequencies. "You have spread your primitive violence across the galaxy for too long. The Dominion has watched species rise and fall for 1,000,000 years. We have decided that your time is over." Grand Admiral Kang activated his communication system. "Emperor Vexthul, this is Grand Admiral Kang of the Earth Defense Force. You've come a long way to visit our home system. I hope the trip was worth it." "Your insolence ends here," the Emperor replied. His voice carried the weight of eons, the authority of a being who had ruled when humanity was still discovering fire. "Your ships may have defeated younger species through trickery and desperation, but the Dominion possesses weapons that were ancient when your son was young." "That's interesting," Kang said calmly. "Our weapons are about 2 years old and they work just fine." The Dominion fleet advanced in perfect formation, their movements coordinated with the precision of a species that had been waging war for millennia. Energy fields that could reshape matter surrounded each ship. Weapons that channeled the power of stars themselves charged with ominous light. But as they approached, they began to encounter Earth's defenses. What had once been a single world protected by a handful of converted cargo ships was now the heart of a military empire. Orbital defense platforms bristled with hybrid weapons. Automated defense drones filled the space between Earth and Luna. Asteroid bases mounted guns that could crack continents. "Primitive defenses," Emperor Vexthul observed dismissively. "Clear them away." The Dominion fleet opened fire with weapons that defied physics as most species understood it. Reality itself seemed to bend around their attacks as space-time distortion beams lashed out at human positions. Matter conversion rays turned solid metal into exotic gases. Temporal displacement fields attempted to age human structures into dust. It should have been the end of human civilization. Instead, something impossible happened. The human defenses absorbed the attack. "What sorcery is this?" the Emperor demanded as his sensors showed human defense platforms not only intact, but glowing brighter with each hit. "It's called learning from your mistakes," Captain Lim replied from the Phoenix Rising. 2 years ago you might have caught us off guard, but we've had time to study every weapon in the galaxy. Dr. On's voice crackled over the fleet communication system. Absorption field generators are at maximum capacity. All ships prepare for redistribution attack. What followed was the largest energy release in recorded galactic history. Every joule of power from the Dominion's opening barrage, captured and amplified by human technology, was released in a coordinated strike from 300 warships and thousands of defense platforms. The wave of energy that struck the Dominion fleet was visible from the outer planets. When the light faded, 50 of their most advanced ships had simply ceased to exist, converted into constituent atoms by their own reflected power. Impossible. Emperor Vexthul roared. No species should be able to harness Dominion technology. We don't harness it, Grand Admiral Kang replied. We improve it. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Dominion fought with weapons that manipulated fundamental forces, trying to tear apart the fabric of space itself around human ships. But humanity had learned from every previous encounter, adapting and evolving with each new threat they faced. Human vessels moved through distorted spacetime like fish through water, their hybrid drives unaffected by temporal displacement fields. Their armor, enhanced with captured Dominion materials, shrugged off matter conversion beams. Their weapons, combinations of technologies from dozens of species, struck back with devastating effectiveness. Captain Lim led a strike force of 50 ships directly at the Eternal Throne. The massive vessel was protected by shields that could deflect the energy output of a star. But the humans didn't attack the shields. They attacked reality itself around them. Activate the dimensional torpedoes, she ordered. The weapons that launched from her ships were humanity's latest innovation. Devices that combined Dominion spacetime technology with human stubbornness. Instead of trying to break through the Emperor's shields, they simply went around them through parallel dimensions. The explosions that bloomed inside the Eternal Throne's supposedly impregnable defenses sent shockwaves through the Dominion fleet. Their ultimate weapon, their proudest achievement, was being torn apart from within by primitives who had learned to walk among the stars only a few years before. All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship, Grand Admiral Kang commanded. 300 human warships focused their combined firepower on the Eternal Throne. Nuclear fire, plasma bolts, kinetic projectiles, dimensional weapons, and technologies that had no names in any language struck the ancient vessel from every direction. But the Emperor's ship was not defenseless. Weapons that had been used to destroy entire star systems began to charge with ominous light. Emperor Vexthul prepared to unleash forces that could crack planets. You want to see the fire that burns across stars? He transmitted to the human fleet. Then witnessed the power of the Dominion. The weapon that fired from the Eternal Throne was pure destruction given form. It was the power that had ended civilizations, the force that had kept the galaxy in line for 1,000,000 years. It struck the Phoenix Rising directly, should have erased it from existence. Instead, Captain Lim's ship absorbed the energy and fired it back doubled. The return strike, amplified by human engineering and focused by human will, punched through the Eternal Throne's ancient armor like paper. The great ship, pride of the Dominion, broke apart in a series of explosions that lit up the solar system. Emperor Vexthul's final transmission was filled with disbelief. How? How do they turn our own power against us? Practice, Grand Admiral Kang replied simply. The destruction of their emperor and flagship broke the Dominion fleet's will to fight. The surviving ships scattered, carrying news of humanity's victory to every corner of the galaxy. The oldest empire in known space had fallen to a species that had been in space for less than 3 years. In the aftermath of the battle, Grand Admiral Kang received a priority communication from the Galactic Council. Speaker Veltros, the same being who had mocked humanity's first diplomatic mission, appeared on the screen with an expression of barely controlled fear. Admiral Kang, Veltros said, his voice carefully respectful, the Galactic Council formally requests an immediate ceasefire. We wish to discuss terms for a lasting peace between our peoples. Peace sounds good, Kang replied. We're reasonable people. Send your representatives to Earth and we'll talk. And your expansion into Dominion space? Kang smiled. Well, someone has to maintain order in those systems. We wouldn't want them falling into the wrong hands. 5 years later, Ambassador So-Young Park, now Director of Galactic Affairs, stood in the same council chamber where humanity had first been mocked as primitive. The seats that had once held representatives who laughed at human ships now held delegates who spoke respectfully of Earth's military might and diplomatic wisdom. Through the great windows of Nexus Prime, she could see human ships moving among the traffic of 100 worlds. They still looked crude compared to the elegant alien vessels, still bore the visible welds and thick armor that marked them as human construction. But no one laughed anymore. A new species was being welcomed to the Council today, a young civilization that had just achieved faster-than-light travel. Their ships were primitive by galactic standards, held together with hope and determination. Other species began to make dismissive comments about their crude technology. Ambassador Park stood and walked over to the new delegates, offering them a warm smile. "Welcome to the galactic community," she said. "Don't let the others discourage you. We remember what it was like to be underestimated."